I was finally reviewing our joint savings account that morning when the odd transaction to the Four Seasons Maui caught my eye. $27,500 for what David had claimed was an investment conference next month. As I dug deeper into our account history, my heart stopped. Multiple charges from luxury retailers, high-end restaurants, and another resort booking in Aspen from 3 months ago. The trail of extravagance painted a clear picture, one that my husband of 8 years had carefully hidden until now. I'm Amy Parker, and this is how I discovered my husband was spending our life savings on lavish trips with his mistress, and how I orchestrated the perfect plan to take everything back. If this story resonates with you, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell, because tomorrow's story will leave you speechless. Now, let me take you back to where it all began. The morning started like any other at our Queen Anne townhouse in Seattle. David had already left for the office, kissing me goodbye while mentioning another late meeting at Parker Development Group. As a financial advisor at Horizon Tech, numbers were my world. So when our bank flagged unusual activity on our joint account, I decided to take a closer look. David had always handled our personal finances, insisting I was too busy with my own clients. Now I understood why. Sitting at our kitchen island, I scrolled through months of transactions, my coffee growing cold beside me. Designer boutiques in downtown Seattle, $4,800. Weekend getaway at Salish Lodge, $3,200. Private dining at Canlis, $1,250. Each charge. Told a story of secret indulgences that our supposed investment property funds were financing. But it was the upcoming Maui reservation that made my blood run cold. A luxury ocean view suite for two, definitely not meant for a business conference. My hands didn't shake as I picked up my phone to text Mike Thompson, our IT specialist at Horizon Tech and one of my closest friends. Need your expertise. Urgent, but quiet. His response came immediately. Lunch at the Daily Grind? I took one last look at the transaction history before grabbing my coat. The Seattle rain seemed fitting for the storm brewing inside me. The cozy coffee shop was quiet for a Tuesday. Mike sat in our usual corner, 2 lattes waiting. One look at my face and he knew something was wrong. "Remember when you mentioned that email recovery software last month?" I asked, sliding into my seat. "I need it, and I need this to stay between us." When David had synced his phone to my laptop for a backup last week, he hadn't realized he'd given me access to everything, including deleted emails. As Mike walked me through the recovery process, fragments of my husband's secret life emerged. Emails to Olivia Reed, the interior designer he'd hired for our latest property development. Hotel confirmations, private dinner reservations, intimate messages that made me sick to my stomach. "How long?" Mike asked softly, watching me scroll through the evidence. "Based on these emails, at least 6 months. They've been using our investment property viewings as cover. All those late meetings, site visits, design consultations. I paid for him to wine and dine her with our savings." My voice remained steady, surprising even myself. "He's taken nearly $275,000 from our joint account." Mike leaned forward, his expression serious. "Amy, this isn't just infidelity. This is financial fraud. You need to protect yourself." He was right. David hadn't just betrayed our marriage, he'd betrayed our financial future, but I wasn't about to let him get away with either. That evening, I maintained my routine, made dinner, answered work emails, greeted David with a smile when he came home late, reeking of expensive perfume that wasn't mine. "How was the site visit?" I asked casually. "Productive," he replied, loosening his tie. "Olivia's design concepts are really coming together." I bet they are, I thought, watching him check his phone with that secret smile I now understood. "The Maui conference next month. Remind me again what it's about." His fingers paused momentarily on his screen. "Just investment strategies, nothing exciting. You'd be bored." He kissed my cheek, heading upstairs to shower. I waited until I heard the water running before making a call to Jennifer Ross, David's assistant who, as it turned out, was tired of covering for her boss's private meetings with Olivia. The pieces were falling into place. What David didn't know was that while he was planning his romantic getaway with his mistress, I was about to orchestrate something far more memorable. Sometimes the best revenge isn't just about exposing lies, it's about being smarter than those who thought they could fool you. And as I sat there in our kitchen, surrounded by evidence of his betrayal, I knew exactly what I had to do. David Parker was about to learn a very expensive lesson about underestimating his wife. Over the next few days, I immersed myself in detailed financial forensics, meticulously documenting every questionable transaction from our joint accounts. The morning light streamed through my home office window as I created spreadsheets tracking David's spending patterns. A weekend business retreat at Salish Lodge matched perfectly with an Instagram post Olivia had shared, a suspiciously similar mountain view tagged only as peaceful escape. The pieces were fitting together like a twisted puzzle. My phone lit up with a message from Jennifer, David's assistant. "Lunch today? Need to tell you something." We met at a quiet bistro in Pike Place Market, far from both our offices. Jennifer fidgeted with her napkin, guilt written across her face. "I can't keep quiet anymore, Amy. The reservations, the gifts, the private dinners, I've been booking them all. David said you knew about the business expenses, but yesterday when he asked me to arrange another hotel suite..." She slid her phone across the table, showing me emails detailing arrangements for romantic dinners, spa packages, and weekend getaways, all meticulously disguised as business expenses in our company accounts. "There's more," Jennifer continued, her voice dropping. "Olivia's design firm isn't just getting contracts for interior work. David's been inflating her invoices, using the extra money to fund their lifestyle. The Maui trip? That's just the beginning." Back at my office in Horizon Tech, I dove deeper into our financial records. David had always insisted on handling our investments, claiming his real estate expertise made him better suited for financial decisions. Now I understood why. Hidden beneath layers of legitimate business transactions, I found a pattern of misappropriated funds, inflated expenses, and suspicious transfers. Mike appeared at my door, closing it quietly behind him. "Found something interesting in those recovered emails," he said, placing a USB drive on my desk. "David's been moving money between multiple accounts. The savings account withdrawals, that's just what you can see. There's more hidden in offshore accounts, all carefully disguised as property investments." I felt surprisingly calm as I reviewed the evidence. 8 years of marriage, and I'd never once questioned David's financial decisions. He'd played on my trust, knowing I was too busy with my own clients to notice his deception. "Look at this." Mike pointed to a series of transactions. "He's been siphoning money from your joint investment properties too. The renovations he claimed were eating up the profits. Most of that money went straight to personal accounts." That evening, I maintained my composure as David announced another late meeting. "Big development project," he explained, adjusting his tie, the one I'd given him for our last anniversary. "Olivia's presenting new design concepts." I smiled, noticing how his phone buzzed with her messages even as he kissed me goodbye. "Don't wait up, honey." After he left, I called Carol, my mother-in-law. Over the years, she'd become more of a mother to me than a mother-in-law, and her business acumen was legendary in Seattle's real estate circles. "Come over," she said after I explained what I'd discovered, "and bring everything you found." Carol's elegant home overlooked Lake Washington, its walls lined with photos of family success stories. She listened intently as I laid out the evidence, her expression growing darker with each revelation. "I've watched Olivia at company events," she said finally. "The way she looks at David. I should have said something sooner. She touched a frame containing David's father's photo. He built this company on integrity. What David's doing? It's not just betraying you, it's betraying everything we stand for. We spent hours reviewing documents, Carol's expertise highlighting irregularities I hadn't even noticed. See these property transfers? He's been moving assets into private holdings. And these development contracts with Olivia's firm? The numbers don't add up. She reached for her phone. I'm calling Michael Chen. Michael Chen, the family's longtime attorney, arrived within the hour. As he examined our findings, his expression turned grave. This goes beyond simple infidelity, Amy. There's potential fraud here, misappropriation of company funds, tax implications. You need to protect yourself and the company. Carol squeezed my hand as Michael outlined our options. First, we secure the evidence. Then, we freeze certain accounts. Carefully, legally. You need to document everything without alerting David. And most importantly, you need to plan your next moves strategically. Later that night, as I drove home through Seattle's rain-slicked streets, my mind raced with possibilities. David's betrayal wasn't just personal, it was professional. Financial? Complete. He'd gambled everything. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Our marriage, our savings, his family's company, all for stolen moments with Olivia. My phone buzzed with a message from David. Another late night. Don't hold dinner. Below it, an alert from our joint account. Another charge at an upscale restaurant downtown. I could picture them there, laughing over expensive wine, planning their Maui getaway, never suspecting that their carefully constructed world was about to crumble. Back home, I opened my laptop, beginning the meticulous process of documenting every betrayal. David thought he was cleverly hiding his deception behind business jargon and fake invoices. He'd forgotten one crucial detail. Numbers had always been my expertise. And while he was building his house of cards with Olivia, I was learning exactly how to make it fall. Morning light filtered through the blinds of my Horizon Tech office as I reviewed another set of suspicious transactions. The evidence against David was mounting faster than Seattle's notorious spring rain. Each financial record, every recovered email, painted a clearer picture of his elaborate deception. But I needed more. Undeniable proof that would leave no room for explanations or excuses. A soft knock at my door revealed Mike, clutching his laptop with an expression that told me he'd found something significant. Remember those encrypted files we couldn't access last week? He settled into the chair across from my desk, turning his screen toward me. Well, I managed to crack them. You're going to want to see this. The files contained years of correspondence between David and Olivia, long predating her official involvement with Parker Development Group. Their affair hadn't started 6 months ago, as I'd initially thought. It had been going on for nearly 2 years, disguised behind legitimate business, transactions, and carefully crafted paper trails. My hands remained steady as I scrolled through email after email. Property viewings that never happened. Design consultations that were actually romantic getaways. Inflated contracts that funneled money into their secret accounts. They'd created an entire shadow business operation to finance their relationship, using company resources like their personal piggy bank. Jennifer appeared in my doorway, her face pale. Amy, David just called an emergency meeting with the board for next week. He's presenting a restructuring plan that would give him complete control over project budgets. If this goes through. She didn't need to finish. If David secured that kind of authority, tracking his financial misconduct would become nearly impossible. I reached for my phone, dialing Carol's number. Within an hour, I was seated in her lake house study, watching her face darken as she reviewed Mike's findings. The board meeting, she said finally, setting down her reading glasses. "He's trying to cover his tracks, but he's forgotten something crucial. I still hold controlling interest in the company." Carol's fingers flew over her keyboard, pulling up more records. "Look at this pattern. Every time Olivia's firm secured a contract, there was a corresponding deposit into an account in the Cayman Islands." David thought he was being clever, using international transactions to hide the money trail. But he didn't count on us finding this. A notification popped up on my phone, another charge at a high-end jewelry store downtown. "Let me guess," Carol's voice was ice. "A business expense for client appreciation?" I showed her the amount. $12,000. Apparently, appreciating Olivia's design work requires a platinum tennis bracelet. Michael Chen arrived as we were mapping out the full scope of David's financial web. The attorney's usually composed demeanor slipped as he reviewed our latest findings. "This is far worse than we initially thought. He's not just misappropriating funds, he's potentially committed wire fraud, tax evasion, and securities violations." We spent hours in Carol's study, building an airtight case. Each transaction we uncovered revealed new layers of deception. David hadn't just betrayed our marriage. He'd systematically abused his position, manipulated company resources, and violated countless regulations, all to maintain his facade of success and fund his relationship with Olivia. My phone lit up with a message from Mike. "Found something else. Their Maui reservation? It's not just a week. They've booked the suite for a month. David's planning to announce a lengthy business expansion trip at the board meeting." Carol's hand gripped my shoulder as she read the message. "A month in? Maui? Using company funds? Not if I have anything to say about it." She reached for her phone. "Time to call in some favors. Rebecca Turner at the SEC has been waiting for a case like this." As evening approached, I returned to my office, my mind processing everything we'd uncovered. Through my window, I could see David's car still parked at Parker Development Group, another late meeting with Olivia no doubt in progress. My computer pinged with an email from Jennifer. She'd found more hidden correspondence, including plans for David and Olivia to view potential properties in Maui. They weren't just planning a vacation. They were scouting locations for a new life. Mike appeared with fresh coffee and more revelations. "I traced the money from your joint savings. David's been moving it through multiple accounts, trying to hide the trail. But look where it ends, up." He pointed to a series of transactions, all leading to a private account in Olivia's name. "They've been planning this for months. The Maui trip isn't just a getaway, it's an escape." I felt a strange calm as I absorbed this information. David thought he was orchestrating the perfect exit strategy, using our savings and company funds to build a new life with Olivia. He had no idea that while he planned his escape, I was building something much more powerful, an ironclad case that would bring his entire house of cards crashing down. As Seattle's evening traffic hummed below, I began organizing our findings into a comprehensive report. Every transaction, every email, every piece of evidence carefully documented and cross-referenced. David and Olivia had spent 2 years weaving their web of deceit. They were about to learn that sometimes the deadliest predator is the one they never saw coming. My phone buzzed with a dinner reservation confirmation. David's automatic notification for another business dinner at our favorite restaurant. The same restaurant where he'd proposed 8 years ago. Now he was taking Olivia there, probably sitting at our special table, planning their future with money he'd stolen from our past. The pieces were falling into place faster than I'd anticipated. Carol's connections, Mike's technical expertise, Jennifer's inside information, and my financial knowledge formed a perfect storm of revelation. David had played a dangerous game, betting that his wife was too trusting, too busy, too naive to uncover his schemes. What he'd failed to realize was that while he was building his perfect escape with Olivia, he'd given me everything I needed to ensure he'd never get away with it. The board meeting wouldn't just expose his affairs, both financial and personal. It would become the stage for his complete undoing. The morning of the board meeting arrived with an unexpected sense of clarity. I sat in my Horizon Tech office, reviewing the final pieces of evidence we'd gathered. The Seattle skyline, usually shrouded in morning mist, stood sharp and clear against the blue sky, a perfect metaphor for how everything had suddenly come into focus. Mike rushed in, his expression urgent. "You need to see this right away." He pulled up a series of emails on his tablet. David just moved another $500,000 into that Cayman account. But here's the interesting part. It's not just their getaway money. They've been using company funds to set up a competing development firm in Maui. The emails revealed an elaborate plan. David and Olivia hadn't just been planning a luxurious escape. They'd been systematically laying groundwork for a new business venture. Using contacts from Parker Development Group, they'd already secured several potential clients and properties, all while using company resources and our savings to fund their setup costs. A knock at my door revealed Jennifer, her face flushed with excitement. The board members are starting to arrive early. And Amy, I overheard David practicing his presentation. He's planning to announce a new international division of the company, with him and Olivia at the helm. He's going to try to legitimize everything they've done. Carol called next, her voice tight with controlled anger. "I'm meeting with the major shareholders now. They've seen the preliminary report. To say they're furious would be an understatement." She paused, and I could hear papers shuffling. Rebecca from the SEC is here too. She's particularly interested in those offshore transfers. I gathered my materials, each document carefully organized and annotated. 2 years of deception laid bare in spreadsheets, emails, and bank statements. As I prepared to leave my office, Mike caught my arm. "There's something else. I found their personal messages from last night. They're not just planning to move to Maui, they've already bought property there, under Olivia's maiden name." The drive to Parker Development Group felt surreal. Seattle's streets were busy with morning traffic, people rushing to their normal workday routines. Inside my car, I reviewed the presentation we'd prepared one last time. Every transaction traced, every lie documented, every scheme exposed in meticulous detail. The company's boardroom was already filling when I arrived. David stood at the front, arranging his presentation materials, looking confident in his expensive suit. Olivia sat nearby, presumably ready to present their design concepts for the new international division. Neither of them noticed me slip into the back of the room. Carol entered with the shareholders and SEC representatives, her expression carefully neutral. I watched David's face as he registered their presence, saw the first flicker of uncertainty cross his features. This wasn't the audience he'd been expecting for his carefully planned announcement. "Before we begin," Carol's voice cut through the murmured conversations, "there's been a change to today's agenda." She nodded to me, and I moved toward the front of the room, USB drive in hand. "Our financial advisor has uncovered some concerning irregularities that require immediate attention." David's face paled as I connected my laptop to the presentation screen. "Amy, what are you doing?" he whispered as I passed him. "What's going on?" Olivia shifted nervously in her seat, her hand instinctively touching the new tennis bracelet at her wrist. The first slide appeared, a comprehensive timeline of every misappropriated fund, every falsified expense, every hidden transfer. "Over the past 2 years," I began, my voice steady, "systematic financial fraud has been perpetrated against both this company and its shareholders." For the next hour, I laid out our findings. The fake business trips that were actually romantic, getaways, the inflated contracts that funneled money into private accounts, the offshore transfers disguised as international investments, the competing business they'd been secretly establishing with stolen company resources. David attempted to interrupt several times, but Carol's sharp glance kept him silent. Olivia's perfectly maintained composure cracked as I revealed their Maui property purchase, complete with photos of the beachfront house they'd bought using embezzled funds. The SEC representatives took extensive notes, while the shareholders' expressions grew increasingly thunderous. When I finished, the room sat in stunned silence for several moments. David finally stood, straightening his tie. "I can explain everything. These allegations are completely—" "Save it for your lawyer," Carol cut in, nodding to the security team that had quietly entered the room. "The board has already voted. You're both suspended pending a full investigation, and the authorities have some questions about those offshore accounts." As security escorted David and Olivia out, I could hear them beginning to turn on each other. "You said nobody would trace the transfers?" Olivia hissed. "You promised me everything was properly hidden." David's response was lost as the boardroom doors closed behind them. Carol hugged me tightly once they were gone. "Well done," she whispered. "But this is just the beginning. They'll try to fight back, claim misunderstandings, or set up." She smiled grimly. "Good thing we have absolutely everything documented." My phone buzzed, Mike sending confirmation that all company accounts had been secured, all access revoked. Jennifer appeared with more documents, evidence of last-minute attempts by David to move additional funds. The SEC team was already diving into the offshore accounts, their expressions suggesting they'd found even more than we had. Back in my office that evening, I watched as David's personal belongings were packed up from his corner suite. Through the windows, I could see Olivia's car still in the parking lot, probably trying to salvage what she could from her firm's contracts. My phone showed multiple missed calls from both of them. Desperate attempts to explain, to negotiate, to manipulate the situation one last time. Instead of responding, I focused on the final phase of our plan. While they'd been dreaming of their Maui escape, I'd been building something far more substantial, a complete restructuring proposal for the company, one that would protect it from ever being exploited like this again. The city lights began to twinkle on as I completed the last details. David had spent years underestimating me, assuming I was too trusting or too busy to notice his deception. He'd forgotten one crucial detail. In his rush to fund his new life with Olivia, he'd given me everything I needed to destroy his old one. I walked into our Queen Anne townhouse that evening to find David waiting, his perfectly tailored suit wrinkled, his usual confidence shattered. "You had no right," he started, rising from the kitchen island. "Those were private business matters. You've ruined everything." The laugh that escaped me held no humor. Private business matters? Is that what we're calling embezzlement and fraud now? I set my briefcase down, deliberately removing my coat as Seattle's rain pattered against the windows. "Or maybe you mean your private business with Olivia." His face flushed with anger. "You don't understand. Olivia and we had real plans, visions for expanding the company. You've destroyed potential opportunities that could have benefited everyone." He reached for me, but I stepped back, maintaining the distance between us. "Real plans?" I pulled out my phone, scrolling through photos. "Like this beachfront property in Maui? The one you bought with our savings and company funds? Tell me, David, how exactly would your secret love nest benefit everyone?" The color drained from his face as I showed him the property records, the transfer documents, all bearing Olivia's maiden name. "That's private property. You had no right to access those records." His voice held a tremor now, the first crack in his polished facade. "Actually, I had every right. You used our joint savings, David. Money we earned together. Money meant for our future." I moved to the kitchen, calmly pouring myself a glass of water. "Though I suppose I should thank you. If you hadn't gotten sloppy with the Maui transfers, I might never have discovered just how deep your deception went." My phone buzzed. Carol sending updates about the SEC investigation. they'd frozen all the suspicious accounts, including the ones David thought were perfectly hidden. His own phone kept lighting up with messages, probably Olivia panicking about their crumbling plans. "We need to talk about this rationally." David tried a different approach, his tone shifting to the one he used to smooth over difficult client meetings. "I know you're hurt, but destroying my career, my reputation, that's not the answer." I turned to face him fully. "Your career? Your reputation? You destroyed those yourself, David. Every time you stole from the company. Every time you lied to the board. Every time you used our money to fund your affair." My voice remained steady, even as his composure cracked further. "Olivia understands me," he snapped, mask finally slipping. "She sees my vision, supports my ambitions. While you were buried in your spreadsheets at Horizon Tech, she was helping me build something bigger." "Building something bigger?" I pulled up the evidence on my tablet. "Is that what you call draining our accounts? Using company resources to set up your secret escape plan? Tell me, did Olivia understand she was participating in federal crimes? Or did you lie to her about that too?" The doorbell rang before he could respond. Michael Chen stood outside with 2 police officers, search warrant in hand. "Mr. Parker," Michael's tone was professionally cold. "The authorities have some questions about certain financial transactions." I watched as they led David away, his threats and protests fading into the rainy evening. Upstairs, I began methodically, packing his belongings, each item a reminder of our shared life, now tainted by his betrayal. My phone kept buzzing with messages, Mike confirming more evidence found, Jennifer reporting Olivia's hysterical exit from her office, Carol coordinating with the investigation team. A new message lit up my screen. "Olivia," surprisingly. "This isn't over. You have no idea what you've done." Attached was a photo of documents, records she claimed would prove their business plans were legitimate. I forwarded it straight to Michael, adding to the mounting evidence of their desperation. The next morning, Seattle's business community buzzed with news of the scandal. David's arrest made headlines, his carefully crafted reputation shattered by revelations of fraud and embezzlement. Olivia's design firm faced its own crisis as clients rushed to distance themselves from the controversy. Carol met me for coffee at our usual spot near Pike Place Market. "The SEC is having a field day with those offshore accounts," she reported, sliding a thick folder across the table. "They've uncovered even more than we found. Seems David and Olivia had quite the elaborate plan for their new life." I reviewed the documents, each page revealing new layers of their deception. Property purchases, shell companies, hidden accounts, all meticulously arranged to support their escape. They really thought they'd get away with it, I mused, watching Seattle's morning crowd hustle past our window. "People like them always do," Carol sighed, stirring her coffee. "They get so caught up in their clever schemes, they forget that simple truth is the hardest thing to hide." She squeezed my hand. "You did the right thing, Amy. The company, the shareholders, even their other victims, everyone needed to know the truth." Back at Horizon Tech, Mike greeted me with more updates. The forensic accounting team had traced millions in misappropriated funds. David and Olivia's dream of a luxurious new life had left a trail of financial destruction in its wake. Jennifer called next, her voice excited. "You won't believe what we just found in Olivia's office files. Remember those design contracts that seemed inflated? There's a whole hidden folder of the real invoices, showing exactly how they skimmed money from each project. The evidence mounted hourly, each discovery confirming that exposing their schemes had been just the beginning. David and Olivia had built their relationship on stolen moments and stolen money, never imagining it would all come crashing down around them. The rain poured steadily outside the downtown Seattle courthouse as I reviewed my statement one final time. The preliminary hearing for David's case would start in an hour, and the mounting evidence had grown far beyond our initial discoveries. Mike sat beside me, organizing the latest financial records we'd uncovered, while Carol spoke quietly with the prosecution team. "There's something else you should see," Mike murmured, sliding his tablet toward me. "Remember those mysterious transactions to that consulting firm in Vancouver? Turns out it was another shell company. David and Olivia weren't just planning a life in Maui, they had backup plans scattered across multiple countries." The prosecution's lead attorney, Sarah Martinez, joined us with fresh coffee and grim determination in her eyes. The judge just denied their motion to suppress the financial evidence. "Everything we found is admissible." She spread additional documents across the table. "And those backup plans they made? Each one leaves a clearer trail of fraud than the last." Jennifer rushed in, slightly breathless from the rain. "Olivia's trying to cut a deal," she announced, shaking water from her coat. "She's offering to testify against David, claiming he manipulated her into participating in the fraud." Her expression turned wry. Apparently, true love doesn't survive federal indictments. Through the courthouse windows, I watched David arrive, with his legal team. His designer suit couldn't hide the strain of the past weeks. Behind him, I glimpsed Olivia entering through a separate door, carefully avoiding his gaze. Their perfectly planned future had crumbled faster than either had anticipated. "Ms. Parker?" A court clerk approached our table. "The prosecutor needs to review a few details about the offshore accounts before the hearing." I followed her to a conference room where more evidence awaited. Bank statements, property records, email trails, each piece revealing new depths of their deception. Sarah spread out a timeline of transactions. "Look at this pattern," she pointed to a series of transfers. "Every time they moved money through the Cayman accounts, they created a matching set of fake business documents. The level of premeditation is staggering." Carol joined us, her face tight with controlled anger. The board just finished reviewing the complete audit, the total amount they embezzled. She paused, steadying herself. "It's nearly double what we initially discovered. They weren't just stealing for their affair, they were systematically draining the company." My phone buzzed with a message from the forensic accounting team. They'd traced another set of hidden accounts, these registered under names of non-existent clients. David's web of financial manipulation stretched further than anyone had imagined. The hearing itself felt almost anticlimactic after weeks of revelations. I watched David shift uncomfortably as the prosecutor laid out the evidence. His eyes kept darting to Olivia, who sat with her own attorney, studiously avoiding his gaze. Their dream of a luxurious escape had transformed into a nightmare of legal consequences. The defendants engaged in a systematic pattern of fraud, the prosecutor declared, presenting document after document. Using both personal and corporate funds, they created an elaborate network of false accounts, fabricated business records, and hidden assets, all while betraying the trust of their family, colleagues, and shareholders. During a brief recess, Mike pulled me aside with more updates. "The tech team just cracked another encrypted drive," he whispered. "Found emails discussing properties in Costa Rica, bank accounts in Switzerland. They were planning this exit strategy for years." I watched David huddled with his lawyers, his usual confidence replaced by barely concealed panic. Across the room, Olivia's attorney approached the prosecution team, likely continuing plea deal negotiations. Their perfect partnership had dissolved into a race to betray each other first. The afternoon brought a parade of witnesses, company accountants detailing suspicious transactions, bank officials tracing wire transfers, even a real estate agent from Maui describing the property purchased with stolen funds. Each testimony added another layer to the mountain of evidence. Carol squeezed my hand as David's former business partners testified about contracts inflated to generate kickbacks. "You did the right thing," she whispered. "The company, the employees, everyone deserved to know the truth." Between testimonies, Jennifer showed me messages from other employees coming forward with their own stories. "It's like a dam breaking," she said. Everyone who ever suspected something was wrong but felt too intimidated to speak up. They're all talking now. Sarah presented records of the Maui property purchase, the documents clearly showing how they'd laundered company funds through multiple accounts to buy their planned escape destination. David's face grew paler with each revelation, while Olivia's attorney scribbled notes frantically. A message from Mike caught my attention. Found their contingency plans. If Maui fell through, they had similar setups in 3 other countries. Each one funded with stolen money, each one carefully hidden, behind layers of fake businesses. The judge's voice cut through my thoughts, announcing a brief recess. In the courthouse corridor, I overheard snippets of conversation between legal teams, plea negotiations, asset seizures, restitution agreements, the complex machinery of justice, grinding inexorably forward. Outside, Seattle's rain had finally stopped, leaving the city gleaming in late afternoon sunlight. I watched David being led to a conference room for yet another meeting with his lawyers, his shoulders slumped in defeat. Nearby, Olivia sat alone on a bench, her designer outfit and perfect makeup a stark contrast to her evident distress. My phone lit up with updates from the financial investigation team. They'd uncovered even more accounts, more properties, more evidence of years of systematic fraud. David and Olivia's dream of escaping to paradise had instead trapped them in a web of their own making. Carol approached with coffee and a gentle smile. "The board meeting's been rescheduled for tomorrow," she said. "We'll be implementing those new financial oversight measures you proposed, making sure nothing like this can ever happen again." As the day's proceedings wound down, I gathered my materials, each document a piece of the puzzle that had revealed the true extent of their betrayal. David and Olivia had spent years building their elaborate escape plan, never imagining it would become the very evidence that destroyed them. The morning sun illuminated my Horizon Tech office as I reviewed the latest reports from our forensic accounting team. Seattle's business community was still reeling from yesterday's court revelations, and more evidence kept surfacing. A soft knock on my door revealed Mike, his expression suggesting another breakthrough. "We found their communication platform," he announced, placing his laptop on my desk. "They thought using encrypted messaging would keep everything hidden, but they forgot about the cloud backups." The messages revealed years of careful planning, each detail of their deception meticulously documented in their own words. Sarah Martinez called from the prosecutor's office, her voice tense with excitement. Olivia's attorney reached out again. She's willing to provide complete access to all her financial records, including accounts we hadn't discovered yet. She's throwing David under the bus entirely. The evidence painted an even darker picture than we'd imagined. Beyond the embezzlement and fraud, they'd been systematically undermining the company's legitimate projects, steering clients toward their secret venture. Each message showed their calculated betrayal of everyone who had trusted them. Jennifer appeared in my doorway, clutching a stack of files. "The auditors found something in the international accounts. Remember those business development trips to Asia? They were actually viewing properties in Thailand, setting up another escape route." My phone buzzed with updates from Carol. The board had received anonymous tips from other employees, each one revealing new layers of deception. Private meetings that never happened, contracts that existed only on paper, a whole shadow operation running parallel to legitimate business. "Ms. Parker?" A voice called from reception. 2 FBI agents stood waiting, their expressions serious. "We need to discuss some international transactions we've traced." The investigation had expanded beyond local jurisdiction, revealing a network of financial manipulation spanning multiple countries. The conference room felt smaller as the agents laid out their findings. Wire transfers to Singapore, property purchases in Bali, shell companies in Panama. David and Olivia's contingency plans stretched across the globe. Each discovery revealed more stolen funds, more elaborate schemes to hide their tracks. "They really thought this through," Agent Torres remarked, spreading out transaction records. Every account had a cover story, every transfer disguised as legitimate business. But they got sloppy near the end, rushed their timeline when they thought Maui was a sure thing. Carol joined us mid-briefing, her face tight with controlled anger. The shareholders are demanding a complete audit of every project David ever handled. We're finding irregularities dating back years. She placed another folder on the growing pile of evidence. The rental properties, the development deals, everything needs to be reviewed. Outside the window, I could see David's now empty parking space at Parker Development Group. His company car had been repossessed, his office sealed for investigation. Olivia's design firm faced its own crisis. As clients rushed to distance themselves from the scandal, a message from Mike caught my attention. Found encrypted emails between them and a property developer in Greece. Another backup plan, another trail of misappropriated funds. The depth of their preparation was staggering. They'd created escape routes on 3 continents, all financed with stolen money. Sarah called again, updating me on the prosecution's strategy. Olivia's cooperation is opening doors we didn't even know existed. Bank accounts, property holdings, even artwork bought with embezzled funds. She's determined to save herself, no matter the cost to David. The afternoon brought more revelations as Jennifer coordinated with international investigators. The Maui property was just the tip of the iceberg, she reported. They had similar setups in 5 other countries, each one carefully hidden behind layers of fake corporations. My phone lit up with a message from David's personal assistant at Parker Development Group. She'd found documents he'd tried to destroy, records of meetings with offshore bankers, plans for transferring assets beyond legal reach. Their perfect escape plan had left an increasingly clear trail of evidence. Carol organized an emergency board meeting to address the expanding scope of the investigation. Every project, every contract, every financial decision David made needs to be scrutinized, she insisted. We have to know exactly how deep this goes. The FBI agents returned with more questions about international transfers. Each answer revealed new threads to unravel, new schemes to investigate. David and Olivia's dream of a secret paradise had spawned a complex web of financial crimes that now stretched across borders and jurisdictions. Late afternoon brought another wave of evidence as Mike's team cracked more encrypted files. They had a whole timeline planned, he explained, showing me detailed spreadsheets. Dates for transferring assets, closing accounts, disappearing completely. They were weeks away from pulling the trigger. My office phone rang, Olivia's attorney, requesting another meeting. Her client was ready to provide full details of their Swiss accounts, properties in the Mediterranean, everything they'd hidden during their years of planning. The partnership built on betrayal was dissolving into mutual recrimination. Seattle's evening traffic hummed below as I reviewed the day's discoveries with Sarah. The fraud charges alone could put them away for years, she noted. Add in the international financial crimes, the tax evasion, the systematic theft of company resources, they'll be lucky to see daylight this decade. A final message from Jennifer completed the day's revelations. Surveillance footage from high-end retailers, showing David and Olivia shopping for their new life, all funded with stolen money. Watches, jewelry, designer clothes, everything charged. 2 accounts filled with embezzled funds. The sun set over Elliott Bay as I gathered my notes, each page documenting another layer of their deception. David and Olivia had spent years crafting their escape, building elaborate facades to hide their true intentions. Now those same careful plans were becoming the evidence that would ensure their downfall. Agent Torres left me with one last thought. People like this always think they're smarter than the system. They get so caught up in creating the perfect plan, they don't realize they're actually creating the perfect case against themselves. Sunrise painted Seattle's skyline in shades of gold as I prepared for another day of revelations. The prosecution team had called an emergency meeting. They'd discovered something significant in the latest batch of evidence. Sarah Martinez waited in the courthouse conference room, surrounded by stacks of new documents and a team of financial analysts. "Your husband was even more creative than we thought," Sarah began, spreading out a series of photographs. "These aren't just vacation pictures from their secret getaways. Look at the backgrounds." Each image showed David and Olivia at various luxury properties around the world, properties we now knew were purchased with embezzled funds. Mike burst into the room, his laptop open. "We've cracked their private email server. You won't believe what they were planning for after Maui." The emails revealed an elaborate network of hidden investments, each one carefully structured to appear legitimate while funneling stolen money into their private accounts. A quiet knock announced Jennifer's arrival. The auditors found something strange in the company's charitable foundation records. She laid out a trail of transactions showing how David had manipulated donations, using the foundation's good name to mask his illegal activities. He was using charitable write-offs to hide the money he was stealing. The morning light grew, stronger as we pieced together this new puzzle. Carol joined us, her face grave. The board just received information about properties in New Zealand. Apparently, they were setting up a complete new identity there. Residency papers, business, licenses, everything. Agent Torres arrived with fresh coffee and more disturbing news. "We've linked their activities to several other fraud cases across the Pacific Northwest. Seems they were testing their methods on smaller projects before attempting their grand escape." "The level of premeditation is astounding," Sarah observed, examining bank statements from their New Zealand accounts. They weren't just planning an affair or a simple embezzlement scheme. They were creating an entirely new life, funded entirely by stolen money. My phone buzzed with a message from the forensic accounting team. They'd discovered a pattern in David's legitimate business dealings. Each successful project had a shadow transaction, siphoning funds through an increasingly complex network of shell companies. The courthouse corridors filled with morning activity as we continued our investigation. Legal teams hurried past our conference room, carrying more evidence boxes. David's defense attorneys looked increasingly strained as each new revelation made their job more difficult. "Ms. Parker?" A courtie clerk appeared with another urgent delivery. "These just arrived from the FBI's Financial Crimes Unit." The documents detailed how David and Olivia had used international art purchases to launder company funds, building a collection worth millions. Sarah spread the new evidence across our workspace. "Look at the dates on these transactions. Every time they closed a major deal for Parker Development Group, they were simultaneously setting up another piece of their escape plan. The art, the properties, the offshore accounts. It was all carefully synchronized." Jennifer's tablet chimed with an alert from the company's internal audit team. They found more hidden accounts, these ones linked to construction projects in Dubai. Seems they were planning multiple exit strategies across different continents. The morning wore on as we traced more connections. Mike's team had uncovered encrypted communications with private banks in Switzerland, property developers in Singapore, even citizenship consultants in various tax havens. Each discovery painted a picture of meticulous planning and calculated betrayal. Carol organized an emergency conference call with international investigators. "The scope keeps expanding," she explained, connecting with teams across multiple time zones. Every jurisdiction where they hid assets needs to be involved in the recovery process. Agent Torres mapped out the growing web of financial crimes on a digital display. Red lines connected bank accounts to properties, blue lines traced money movements, green highlighted their planned escape routes. The complexity of their scheme was breathtaking. "They really thought they had covered every angle," Sarah mused, reviewing Olivia's latest proffer through her attorney. All these elaborate plans, multiple escape routes, carefully hidden assets, and it's all becoming evidence against them. A message from Mike interrupted our analysis. Found their contingency protocols. If one escape route failed, they had 3 others ready to activate. Each one funded with stolen money, each one now traceable back to company accounts. The afternoon sun cast long shadows as we compiled our findings for the prosecution. David's perfect plan had spawned an intricate network of financial crimes, each layer revealing new evidence of their calculated deception. Jennifer appeared, with surveillance footage from high-end jewelry stores in various cities. They were collecting portable assets, she explained, showing clips of David and Olivia selecting expensive pieces. Items they could easily transport or convert to cash, once they disappeared. My phone lit up with updates from Carol. The board had received anonymous tips about similar schemes at other companies where David had worked previously. His pattern of financial manipulation stretched back further than anyone had suspected. Sarah organized the growing mountain of evidence into clear categories: financial fraud, money laundering, tax evasion, international financial crimes. Each charge supported by meticulous documentation of their activities. The setting sun painted Seattle's skyscrapers in shades of amber as we wrapped up another day of discoveries. Tomorrow would bring more revelations, more evidence of their elaborate planning, more proof of their systematic betrayal. Agent Torres left us with a final observation. In all my years investigating financial crimes, I've never seen anything quite like this. They weren't just planning an escape. They were trying to build an entirely new reality, all of it funded by other people's money. Seattle's courthouse hummed with tension as the final hearing approached. The prosecution team had assembled an overwhelming case, each piece of evidence meticulously organized to reveal the full scope of David and Olivia's crimes. Sarah Martinez stood at the conference room window, reviewing her opening statement, while the morning fog lifted over Elliott Bay. "The art collection alone is worth millions," she remarked, gesturing to photographs spread across the table. Paintings, sculptures, rare antiquities, all purchased with embezzled funds and hidden in private storage facilities around the world. They weren't just stealing money, they were converting it into untraceable assets. Mike rushed in, his expression animated. "Just intercepted emails between them and a private bank in Singapore. They were planning to move everything there next month. Accounts, investments, their entire financial portfolio." The timing revealed how close they'd come to executing their escape plan. Agent Torres joined us, carrying files marked with international customs seals. Customs traced their recent travels, private viewings of exclusive properties in Bali, meetings with offshore bankers in Geneva, consultations with citizenship advisors in multiple countries. They were methodically creating exit strategies. Carol arrived with the latest findings from the corporate investigation. The board uncovered a pattern in their real estate developments. Each legitimate project had a hidden component, properties purchased through shell companies and held under false names. They built a shadow real estate empire using company resources. Jennifer appeared with surveillance footage from high-end hotels across the Pacific Rim. "Look at these dates," she said, pointing to timestamps. Every business trip included secret meetings with financial advisors, property agents, art dealers. They were systematically converting stolen funds into physical assets. "The level of planning is extraordinary," Sarah observed, examining records of their international transactions. Private vaults in Switzerland, numbered accounts in the Cayman Islands, property holdings registered to offshore corporations. They created layers of complexity to hide their true activities. My phone buzzed with updates from the forensic team. They'd discovered encrypted files detailing plans for establishing new identities once they reached their chosen haven. Passport applications, residency permits, business licenses, all carefully prepared under assumed names. The courthouse corridors filled with legal teams as the hearing time approached. David's attorneys looked increasingly resigned as they reviewed the mounting evidence. Olivia's legal team huddled in corners, still negotiating terms of her cooperation with the prosecution. Agent Torres spread satellite images across our workspace, showing properties in remote locations. private islands, mountain retreats, secluded villas. They weren't just planning to disappear, he explained. They were creating multiple sanctuaries, each one purchased with stolen money. Sarah's tablet chimed with messages from international investigators. The Swiss authorities found more safety deposit boxes, registered under various aliases. Gold, jewels, bearer bonds. They were stockpiling portable wealth they could access from anywhere in the world. Jennifer's research revealed connections to private security firms specializing in high-net-worth client protection. They hired consultants to design their disappearance, she reported. Experts in helping wealthy individuals vanish completely, leaving no financial footprint. The morning light strengthened as we assembled the final presentation. Each document, each photograph, each piece of evidence told part of a story of calculated betrayal and meticulous planning. David and Olivia had spent years creating their escape route, never imagining it would become the roadmap to their downfall. Carol organized an emergency meeting with international banking investigators. The scope of their financial manipulation crossed every major financial center, she explained. Singapore, Hong Kong, Dubai, Geneva. They used each jurisdiction's privacy laws to hide their activities. Mike's team uncovered more encrypted communications with wealth management firms specializing in asset protection. They were creating a financial fortress, he explained. Multiple layers of corporations, trusts, and holding companies, all designed to obscure the source of their funds. Agent Torres mapped the international network on digital displays. Red lines traced money movements, blue highlighted property acquisitions, green showed planned escape routes. The complexity of their scheme spanned continents and jurisdictions. Sarah reviewed Olivia's latest testimony, each page revealing new details of their elaborate plan. They had contingencies for every scenario, she noted. If one route failed, they had 3 others ready. If one account was frozen, they had backups in different countries. The afternoon brought more revelations as international investigators reported their findings. Private jets on standby, luxury properties staffed and waiting, bank accounts primed for instant transfers, everything arranged for a swift and untraceable disappearance. Jennifer arrived with records from private wealth management firms. They were converting company assets into artwork, rare wines, precious metals, anything that could be easily transported or sold anywhere in the world. Each transaction carefully structured to appear legitimate while hiding its true purpose. My phone lit up with messages from the forensic accounting team. They'd discovered patterns in David's international business dealings, each legitimate. Transaction had a hidden component, moving stolen funds through an increasingly complex maze of offshore accounts. Carol coordinated with legal teams across multiple jurisdictions. Every country where they hid assets needs to be involved in the recovery process, she explained. The prosecution has to show how they used international banking systems to conceal their crimes. The setting sun cast long shadows through the courthouse windows as we prepared for tomorrow's final hearing. David and Olivia's dream of a perfect escape had created a perfect trail of evidence, each careful step documented in meticulous detail. Agent Torres summarized our findings. They spent years building this plan, creating layers of deception and false identities. But in trying to make their escape untraceable, they actually documented every aspect of their crimes. Sometimes the perfect plan becomes the perfect evidence. The final hearing began under gray Seattle skies. The courtroom, packed with spectators eager to witness the culmination of what had become the city's most talked-about financial scandal. David sat with his legal team, his once immaculate appearance showing signs of strain. Across the aisle, Olivia perched nervously beside her attorneys, carefully avoiding eye contact with her former partner in crime. Sarah Martinez approached the podium, her voice clear and confident as she addressed the court. Your Honor, What began as a simple case of marital infidelity revealed itself to be one of the most sophisticated financial fraud schemes ever uncovered in the Pacific Northwest. She gestured to the evidence displays, each screen showing different aspects of their criminal enterprise. Agent Torres watched from the gallery as federal prosecutors outlined the international scope of their investigation. The defendants didn't just steal money, the lead prosecutor explained. They created an elaborate network of shell companies, hidden accounts, and false identities spanning 4 continents. A murmur rippled through the courtroom as the first pieces of evidence were presented. Satellite images of luxury properties, banking records from offshore accounts, surveillance footage from private meetings with financial advisors. Each exhibit revealed another layer of their methodical planning. Carol squeezed my hand as photographs of their secret art collection appeared on the screens. Millions in paintings and sculptures, all purchased with stolen funds and stored in private vaults around the world. David shifted uncomfortably in his seat as the prosecutors detailed how company money had financed his expensive taste in fine art. Mike's technical expertise proved crucial as the prosecution presented evidence from their encrypted communications. Emails, messages, and detailed spreadsheets showed years of careful coordination between David and Olivia, planning every aspect of their eventual escape. Jennifer's research had uncovered connections to private security consultants specializing in helping wealthy clients disappear. Records showed substantial payments to firms known for creating new identities, establishing offshore residency, and arranging untraceable transportation. The afternoon session focused on their financial crimes. Banking experts testified about the complex web of transactions used to hide stolen funds. Each legitimate business deal had its shadow component, moving money through multiple jurisdictions before landing in secretly controlled accounts. Olivia's testimony proved devastating to David's defense. She detailed their systematic theft of company resources, explained how they'd manipulated contracts and inflated invoices, revealed the elaborate coding system they'd used to track their hidden assets. David's attorneys attempted to portray him as a victim of circumstance, suggesting Olivia had masterminded the financial aspects of their scheme. The claim fell apart as prosecutors produced emails showing his active role in planning every fraudulent transaction. The international scope of their crimes drew particular attention from the judge. Evidence showed how they'd exploited banking privacy laws in multiple countries, creating layers of corporations and trusts to obscure their activities. Each jurisdiction represented another charge, another potential sentence. Sarah's cross-examination of David's financial advisors revealed how they'd converted stolen money into portable assets, rare coins, precious metals, bearer bonds, anything that could be easily transported or sold anywhere in the world. Agent Torres presented evidence from customs authorities tracking their international movements, private jet bookings, property viewings, meetings with offshore bankers, each trip carefully documented in their own records, now becoming proof of their criminal intent. Carol's testimony about the impact on Parker Development Group drew sympathetic murmurs from the gallery. She described how their schemes had undermined company projects, diverted resources from legitimate business activities, and betrayed the trust of employees and shareholders. Mike's analysis of their digital communications painted a picture of meticulous planning and calculated betrayal. Every aspect of their escape had been carefully considered, from establishing new business identities to arranging private security in their chosen haven. The prosecution's financial experts detailed how David and Olivia had systematically drained company accounts, converting stolen funds into assets that could be easily hidden or moved. Their technique showed sophistication that belied any claims of innocent mistakes or misunderstandings. Jennifer's research into their international properties revealed how they'd created a network of luxury safe houses around the world. Each location had been carefully chosen for its privacy laws and limited extradition agreements with the United States. The courtroom fell silent as prosecutors displayed the full financial impact of their crimes. The total value of stolen assets, hidden properties, and diverted funds reached staggering amounts. Even David's experienced defense team seemed taken aback by the final figures. Sarah's closing arguments methodically connected each piece of evidence, showing how David and Olivia's careful planning had created an insurmountable case against them. Their dream of a perfect escape had instead documented every aspect of their crimes in meticulous detail. As the sun set over Seattle's skyline, the judge prepared to deliver the initial rulings on asset seizure and custody arrangements. David and Olivia's elaborate plan for a new life had crumbled into a future marked by legal consequences and financial ruin. The judge's gavel fell with finality in the hushed courtroom, echoing through the tense atmosphere as she delivered her verdict. The evidence presented in this case demonstrates not only extensive financial crimes, but a level of premeditation rarely seen in this court. She peered over her glasses at David and Olivia, who sat separated by their respective legal teams. Sarah Martinez stood confidently as the judge proceeded to outline the penalties. Asset forfeiture would be complete and immediate. Every property, account, and investment traceable to their criminal activities would be seized. The international reach of their scheme had triggered additional federal charges, each carrying substantial prison terms. Mike leaned forward in the gallery, watching as David's face drained of color with each pronouncement. The technical evidence he'd uncovered had proved crucial, showing years of calculated planning through encrypted communications and hidden financial records. Their digital trail had become an unbreakable chain of proof. Agent Torres moved quietly through the courtroom, coordinating with international law enforcement representatives. Recovery teams were already moving to secure properties and assets across multiple jurisdictions. The luxurious safe houses David and Olivia had prepared for their escape would now be sold to help repay their victims. Carol sat beside me, her expression stern as the judge detailed how their crimes had impacted Parker Development Group. The company would implement sweeping reforms, including new oversight measures and transparency requirements. The legacy of David's betrayal would reshape corporate governance for years to come. Jennifer's careful documentation of their activities proved invaluable as the court outlined specific instances of fraud. Each faked invoice, inflated contract, and hidden transaction she'd uncovered added weight to the prosecution's case, leaving no room for claims of misunderstanding or mistake. The afternoon brought a parade of impact statements from those affected by their crimes. Employees whose careers had been damaged, investors who'd lost savings, clients whose trust had been betrayed. Each story painted a picture of widespread harm caused by their selfish schemes. Olivia's plea agreement provided little comfort as the judge announced her reduced but still substantial sentence. Her cooperation had earned some leniency, but the scope of her involvement precluded any chance of avoiding prison time. Her perfectly maintained composure finally cracked as the reality of her situation sank in. David's attempts to shift blame collapsed under the weight of evidence. His own meticulous record-keeping, intended to track their hidden assets, had instead created an unmistakable timeline of criminal intent. Each careful plan for their future now served as proof of their guilt. The international recovery effort continued as legal teams coordinated across time zones. Luxury properties in Bali, numbered accounts in Switzerland, art collections and private vaults, all would be liquidated to help make restitution to their victims. Their dream of an opulent escape had become a liquidation sale. Sarah's prosecutorial strategy had proved flawless, connecting each piece of evidence into an unbreakable chain. The judge particularly commended the thoroughness of the financial investigation, noting how their own precautions had created the strongest evidence against them. Mike's technical analysis revealed the full scope of their planning. Encrypted messages showed how they'd researched privacy laws, planned escape routes, arranged for new identities, each careful step now serving as proof of their criminal enterprise. Agent Torres provided updates on the international asset recovery. Teams had already secured properties in New Zealand, frozen accounts in Singapore, and located hidden vaults in Geneva. Their global network of safe havens had become a map for law enforcement. Carroll organized immediate measures to stabilize Parker Development Group. New leadership would be appointed, contracts reviewed, and client relationships rebuilt. The company would survive, strengthened by lessons learned from their betrayal. Jennifer's research proved invaluable in tracing the full extent of their crimes. Her careful documentation showed how they'd manipulated company resources, diverted funds, and created false records to hide their activities. Each discovery added years to their sentences. The judge's final remarks addressed the sophisticated nature of their scheme. The careful planning, the international scope, the complex financial manipulations, all demonstrated a level of criminal enterprise that demanded significant punishment. Outside the courtroom, Seattle's rain matched the somber mood as reporters gathered to cover the verdict. The case had captured public attention, becoming a cautionary tale of greed, betrayal, and justice in the corporate world. Sarah coordinated with international prosecutors to ensure all aspects of their crimes would face consequences. Different jurisdictions would pursue additional charges, preventing any possibility of finding safe haven after serving their primary sentences. Mike's team continued analyzing recovered data, uncovering new details about their planned escape. Each discovery showed how thoroughly they'd prepared, never imagining their careful planning would become evidence of their crimes. Agent Torres worked with financial crime specialists to track remaining assets. Their investigation had revealed how David and Olivia had converted stolen funds into easily transportable wealth, precious metals, rare coins, bearer bonds, all now subject to seizure. The corporate response focused on rebuilding trust and implementing reforms. New oversight, committees, enhanced audit procedures, and strict financial controls would prevent similar schemes from succeeding in the future. Jennifer's evidence tracking system became a model for future fraud investigations. Her meticulous documentation showed how complex financial crimes could be unraveled by following digital trails and connecting seemingly unrelated transactions. The afternoon waned as final arrangements were made for David and Olivia's transfer to federal custody. Their dream of escaping to a luxury hideaway had ended in standard-issue prison uniforms and separate facilities. As Seattle's evening traffic hummed outside, the last details of asset seizure were arranged. Properties would be sold, accounts liquidated, hidden wealth recovered and returned. Their years of careful planning had created not an escape, but a comprehensive guide to their own downfall. 1 year after the verdict, I stood in my new office at Horizon Tech, now expanded to include oversight of corporate financial compliance. The Seattle skyline stretched before me, the morning sun reflecting off buildings that held so many memories of the past year's transformation. The changes weren't just professional, they reached into every aspect of our financial industry. Sarah Martinez had established a specialized task force focused on detecting similar fraud schemes. "Your case changed how we investigate financial crimes," she told me during our monthly update meeting. "The techniques we developed to uncover their network are now standard procedure across multiple jurisdictions." Mike's cybersecurity innovations, born from unraveling David and Olivia's digital deceptions, had revolutionized fraud detection. Major corporations now used his methods to protect themselves against sophisticated financial schemes. "Every secure transaction, every protected account," he explained, "makes what they did a little harder to repeat." Carroll had transformed Parker Development Group into a model of corporate transparency. The company's new oversight systems and compliance measures became industry standards, studied by business schools and implemented by corporations worldwide. "Sometimes," she observed, "the best reforms come from learning the hardest lessons." Jennifer's methodical approach to documenting financial irregularities had developed into a comprehensive training program. She now taught other companies how to spot the warning signs we'd missed for so long. "Knowledge is power," she reminded her students. "The more people who understand these schemes, the fewer victims there will be." Agent Torres kept me updated on the international impact. Financial crime units across the globe had strengthened their cooperation, closing the loopholes David and Olivia had tried to exploit. Their planned escape routes had become a roadmap for preventing future fraud. The recovered assets continued providing restitution to their victims. Each seized property, liquidated account, and recovered investment helped repair the damage they'd caused. Their dream of luxury had transformed into a fund for making amends. David and Olivia served their sentences in separate federal facilities. Their partnership dissolved into mutual recrimination. The last I heard, they both spent their days in prison libraries, perhaps studying how their perfect plan had become the perfect evidence. My own life had taken unexpected turns. The skills I'd developed investigating their crimes led to opportunities I'd never imagined. Major corporations sought my advice on protecting their assets, while law enforcement agencies requested my insight into complex fraud cases. The profound impact of their scheme continued rippling through the financial world. Banks enhanced their security measures, corporations strengthened their oversight, and regulatory agencies increased their vigilance. Each improvement made the next potential fraud a little harder to accomplish. Carol's prediction had proved true. From darkness, we had created light. Parker Development Group emerged stronger, its new leadership committed to maintaining the highest standards of corporate integrity. The company's renaissance became a case study in recovering from betrayal. Mike's technical innovations earned international recognition. His methods for tracking digital financial crimes were now taught in cybersecurity programs worldwide. Every secure system, he noted, makes the next David and Olivia work a little harder. Jennifer's documentation system evolved into sophisticated fraud detection software. Her attention to detail had created tools that could spot suspicious patterns long before they developed into full-blown criminal enterprises. The courthouse where everything had ended now hosted regular seminars on preventing financial fraud. Legal professionals, corporate executives, and compliance officers studied how David and Olivia's scheme had unraveled, learning to protect their own organizations. Seattle's business community had emerged stronger, more vigilant, and more connected. Regular meetings between corporate leaders, law enforcement, and financial regulators ensured that suspicious patterns would be spotted and investigated quickly. The international financial community implemented stricter controls on property purchases and asset transfers. The global network David and Olivia had tried to exploit now worked against others who might follow their example. As sunset painted Seattle's skies in brilliant colors, I reflected on how a simple discovery of misused savings had exposed an international criminal enterprise. Their careful plans, meant to ensure their escape, had instead ensured their downfall. Their story became a warning to others who might contemplate similar schemes. Each new security measure, oversight protocol, and regulatory requirement made their type of fraud more difficult to accomplish and easier to detect. The final chapter of their story wasn't about punishment or revenge. It was about transformation. From their betrayal came stronger protections, better oversight, and renewed commitment to corporate integrity. Sometimes the best response to darkness is to create more light. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.